What do you think we're doing? That's right, we're starting a reading vlog. Good job, Ollie. Hello, friends, and welcome to yet another reading vlog, although this time it's a reading vlog with a purpose. Now, I'm sure you're tired of me saying it, but I've been in a reading slump for the better part of the last 6 months. But recently, we did manage to read a handful of books, which was great. That did, though, mean logging into my GoodReads account for the first time in quite a while. And although I try not to place too much stock in my reading challenge, my goal books for the year, I did notice that I am now officially 7 books behind my target. So in this video, we're going to try and read 7 books in 1 week. I know, it's ambitious for somebody who's been in a reading slump, but hear me out. I feel like this motivation might be the kick up the butt that I need. It's like enough of a push, enough pressure while still being fun, you know? At this point, I honestly don't know what we're going to be reading this week. I'm very much a mood reader. But there is one book that jumped out to me as soon as I had this thought, and that is one of the new releases for this year that I was very excited about, A Magical Girl Retires by Park Sol-yeon. This is translated by the one and only Anton Her, and I mean, look at this cover. You cannot tell me that you don't want to read it too. A millennial turned magical girl must combat climate change and credit card debt in this delightful, witty, and wildly imaginative ode to magical girl manga. Yes, please. As you can see, it's a pretty short book. It's about 150 pages, so I feel like I can read this in a day. So join me as I embark on this unnecessarily ambitious challenge. Are you okay there, Ollie? And I mean, the clocks are ticking. If we're going to catch up to this reading goal, we need to get reading. So let's get started with A Magical Girl Retires. Can you believe I finished a book in one sitting? Aside from very short middle grade and children's books, I can't remember the last time I did that. I kind of thought at the beginning it was going to be like a favorite. It didn't quite eventuate in that way, but I still really enjoyed reading it. Essentially, in this book, we're introduced to a main character who I think remains unnamed throughout the book. At least I don't remember her name. She's 29 years old. She's in a heap of credit card debt. She doesn't really have a lot of friends, a lot of connections. Her grandfather, who appeared to be her favorite person in the world, has passed away. And so she wants to kill herself. However, in this world, magical girls are real. They're kind of just like casual superheroes that are all around the place. And on the morning of the day that our main character has decided is the day she's going to kill herself, she runs into a magical girl, or a magical girl runs into her, I should say. And this magical girl's name is Roa, and she's the magical girl of clairvoyance. And basically, she's convinced, and she tells our main character that she is a magical girl too. And in fact, she may just be the most important magical girl there is. And Roa is just so happy to have found her because she is convinced that our main character is going to help save the world from climate catastrophe. This book is laugh out loud funny. I literally laughed multiple times, but it's still dealing with some really heavy topics. I mean, obviously we've already spoken about suicidal ideation, but climate collapse, and that silly, goofy, fun, magical mood almost feels like a commentary in a way, like nudging up against satire, but not quite crossing the line. It sort of felt kind of like commentary on the idea that we can save ourselves from climate collapse and yet we kind of refuse to. So maybe our only hope is a magical girl. And then also, this is kind of maybe very vague spoilers, but I won't go into details. Essentially, we learn that magical girls come into their power through what they call triggers, but it's essentially some kind of trauma. And while I'm talking about all this dark, heavy stuff, the tone of the book is light and fluffy, truly it is. It's just kind of got this dark, sinister kind of tone underneath that fluffiness that I think gives this book a lot more substance than you might first expect, which is, I think, perfectly highlighted by Anton Her's translator note at the back. And I just need to read you a little bit of it. The most iconic magical girl of all, Sailor Moon, specifically refers to herself as a champion of justice. The magic that magical girls want is not to grow into giants or concoct powerful fragrances or manipulate time or be clairvoyant. It's the power of justice. Magical girls exist because justice does not. I think the only thing that I was kind of wanting was for the book to just maybe be a bit longer or go a bit further into these themes. And I mean, it's only 150 pages. I don't think you need me to tell you that it kind of doesn't. It's just there for you to make of it what you will. And you're along for the strange, funny ride. But I did really love the concept, and I thought it was a really cool book. I'm really happy to have read it. Now, when selecting our next book, obviously, if I were being strategic, I would go for another short, easy read. I might even go for like a middle grade or something, or a graphic novel. The book I want to read is The Djinn Waits 100 Years. This book is 300 pages. The text is dense, and I don't think this is going to be a light, fun, fluffy read. I don't even imagine it's going to be a quick, easy read, but I want to read it. So like, I have to read it. I'm fully aware that I'm probably completely throwing my challenge, and I'm sure this is foreshadowing for the miserable time I'm going to have at the end of the week trying to catch up. But right now, this just feels right. So we're going to go with it. Thoughts do people have each day on average?
Oh, that's like too many to count.
Nev doesn't think so.
I'm just going to talk about books for a little bit with my friends. Is it okay?
Hello, friends.
It is Sunday afternoon. That means we are on day 3. And have I finished my second book? No. Come on. You and I both know. Look me in the eye. We both knew when I chose that book, I was being overly ambitious. We had a lovely evening with Mum and Dad last night. I got to have some birthday cake a few weeks post-birthday, but it was delicious. So I have done some reading. I don't want you to think that I haven't been reading at all. I am about 200 pages in to our book. That leaves us with another 100 to go. So I'm not throwing in the towel just yet, but we are behind on the scoreboard. There's no denying that. As for the book, it's a gothic tale for sure. And we're kind of got dual timelines at this point. It started out just a single timeline, present day. It's set in like a small coastal town in South Africa. Our main character's name is Sana. She's a 15-year-old girl. She and her father have just like moved to this town. We learn that her mother passed away and that this is kind of a little bit spoilers, but not too spoilery. I want to chat with you about the book, you know. Sana had a sister who has passed away, but is now kind of haunting her. The house itself feels quite alive, and it's clear that both Sana and her father are haunted not only by potentially a ghost, but just memories, you know? So for the first 100 pages or so, we are very much focused on Sana and like her settling into this kind of creepy, strange house with a lot of history. However, in part 2, which I think was at about 80 pages, we also start getting introduced to a second timeline, which is basically set in this house 100 years ago. When it was first built, we're getting to know the people who lived here originally. It's quite clear that something horrific happened, which has definitely left a mark on this house. And I think Sana might be uncovering something that is going to turn kind of dark. Hello, you come to join us? I think the one thing that I'm really not enjoying though, and it's kind of starting to bother me, surprisingly, is the dialogue. There's just so much back and forth, and it feels like so much needless dialogue that it stilts the flow and the pace of the story. Having said that, I am still liking it. I still feel optimistic that this is going to be like a pretty solid read, and I'm definitely hoping that we can finish it today. I mean, obviously, I didn't bring it with me right now. We are heading out on a little birding adventure, just a chill one. But tonight, when we get home, I feel like I can smash out 100 pages. I used to read 100 pages in a day easy. Oh, I just saw a lorikeet. How exciting. Did you see the lorikeet? We'll find some more, I'm sure. Anyway, it's about time we get on with our birding adventure. You want to come? Of course, the second I come out to the balcony, there's a fucking garbage truck. It is a beautiful day Today, actually, we've had a couple of really nice days in Melbourne, so I just really wanted to be out here. Welcome to day 4, I suppose I should say. I have finally finished book number 2, The Gym Waits 100 Years. So yes, we have definitely fallen behind. And I feel like as long as we're strategic from here on out, we can probably catch up. At the very least, I'm reading. And that's the main thing, right? I feel like I've more or less said everything I want to say about The Gym Waits 100 Years. I didn't love it. I feel like I do have a bit of a curse with books that I special order in lovely hardcovers, because I think I've shown you before, this is the Australian cover, or at least the cover that's in distribution in Australia. This is a gothic haunted house story. What the fuck? This cover has no business being here. So of course I was attracted to the cover that I did order in, but it's a beautiful hardback that cost me a pretty penny. And I swear every time I do that, I don't end up liking the goddamn book. So I need to stop. I need to stop ordering in pretty copies. I don't know. I feel like the book had a lot of promise, and it definitely had a lot of strong points, particularly the writing and the atmosphere. Aside from that, I don't know, it just kind of felt like a big swing and a miss. Anyway, speaking of being strategic, I have selected our next book, and it's Mammoths at the Gates by Nevo, which is the 4th book in the Singing Hill cycle. So we'll be able to make some progress on a series that I have really enjoyed, and also it's very short. I think the lowest I've rated one of these books is 4 stars. I really like this series, and after The Gin That Waits 100 Years, I do sort of feel like I need a little bit of a sure thing, a little bit of a pick-me-up to maintain this reading momentum that we have established. And obviously, if we want to catch up, I do need to read, we're 2 books behind. At some point, I need to read 2 extra books in the next 3 and a bit days. That's terrifying. Let's just get to reading and see how we go, shall we? So, we are out on our afternoon walk, and it's actually really warm. I've had a very easy day today because I had to have my allergy injections this morning, which I have every 4 to 6 weeks, and I always try to plan to have a chill day after I get them because I'm always itchy and tired and a little bit grumpy. One thing did make today a little bit nicer though, and that was how much reading I got to enjoy. Mammoths at the Gate. I finished it. Can you believe it? Pretty exciting stuff. I mean, it is the 4th book in a kind of episodic series, so it's not necessarily anything to give away, but also kind of more world building stuff that you learn in earlier books. Aside from maybe the first book, this might be my favorite in the series. I loved it. In this one, we're kind of spending some time with Cleric Chi, who is a storytelling monk. Essentially, they travel this kind of historical fantasy-esque world, collecting stories. And in this book, we follow them as they return home for the first time in a long time and find that basically one of their elders, one of their teachers, has passed away. So this is a book about memories, about grief, about complex, messy humans, and it was just beautiful. This series continues to be one of those kind of quiet favorites for me. I don't know if or when we're getting a 5th book, but I will keep reading this series for as long as we get books. It is only 5:30, so I'm sure by the time we get home and make dinner, I've got a few solid hours in which maybe we'll get started on another book. I'm actually kind of thinking it might be nice to read a middle fiction. I am going back to work tomorrow, so it'd be nice to just have another middle fiction or another children's book that I've read that I can recommend. And lest we forget, we are still 1 book behind on the 7-book challenge. We've read 3 books and it's day 4. So maybe a nice, fun, chill, easy middle grade would be just the ticket, to set us off on the right track as we move into the second half. What do you call it? The final bend? There's a different word. The last lap, whatever it is, of the challenge. And to be honest, the second half of the challenge is going to be harder because, oh, did you hear that? My knee has something to say apparently. The second half of the challenge is going to be harder because I'm at work for the next couple of days. And despite the odds being against us, I still reckon we can do it. Ollie, come here. Hey? She's like, why are we not walking? Ollie's ready. Let's go. Hello friends, I'm at work. I have just closed the store for the day. And we kind of skipped a day. I was at work yesterday too, and I did no reading, I did no filming. So we are once again behind on the scoreboard. Having said that, I have done some reading since the last time I spoke to you. I read the other day Ferris by Kate DiCamillo. Not this copy. I have a copy at home, but I work in a bookshop, so I have copies to show you. I read this the night before last just because I had a proof copy on my shelf and I thought, why not? If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I read my very first Kate DiCamillo and loved it. So I had high hopes. This one was fine. It was fine. It didn't really do much for me. Nothing to write home about. It's basically about a girl named Ferris. Well, that's her nickname anyway. She's called that because she was literally born at a fair under the Ferris wheel. And it's just about an eccentric but lovable family and the things that they get up to. Particularly Ferris's grandmother is kind of aging, and we see as she becomes unwell throughout the book. But also there's a ghost in the house who the grandmother can see. So there's some sweet elements, there's some heartfelt elements. I don't know what to tell you, it just didn't hit, at least for me. So that is the book that I have finished since the last time I talked to you. This morning I started Gary Loansborough's We Didn't Think This Through. This book, I think this came out last year. If you remember, Gary Loansborough wrote The Boy from the Mish, which is one of my favourite young adult books ever. And just last night it was announced that this book won the Readings Young Adult Prize, which is very exciting. I'm only like 40 pages in, so I don't have a whole lot to tell you just yet. We've just been introduced to the main character, and basically he's 16 and at a crossroads in his life. One of his best friends is leaving town, the other one is leaving school to start an apprenticeship, and they decide to do something silly to kind of mark the occasion, and I think it's going to get them into some trouble. And like immediately, he just has a way of making you fall in love with the characters. I already like Jamie, I already like his friends, and I'm already worried about what's going to happen to them. Anyway, I need to finish closing up the shop and head home and try and finish this tonight, which leaves just one day, just tomorrow, to read 2 whole books. Lucky for me, I am not working tomorrow, but still, 2 books in one day. I definitely have bitten off more than I could chew with this challenge, but honestly, I'm doing better than I thought I might. But that's enough yapping from me. I'll see you tomorrow. So it is 5 o'clock on day 7, and I've read another book. I'm so thrilled. I didn't get any reading done again yesterday after I finished work. I'm just knackered. I don't know what to tell you. We're kind of short-staffed at the moment. We're leading into Christmas. And I'm just tired once I get home. So this morning I had a bit of a lie-in, and then I got to finishing We Didn't Think It Through by Gary Loansborough. And this is an incredible young adult novel that if you like young adult books at all, you should read. Highly recommend it. As I mentioned earlier, Gary Loansborough's writing is just so colloquial, so Australian. You just get into it so quickly. You fall in love with the characters so quickly. Their flaws and all, you know. And this book, it is very different from The Boy from the Mish, which I think has a different name in America. Yes, it's been published in America as Ready When You Are. Thought I should mention that because I talk about that book a lot. In this book, though, we're taking much more a look at, I suppose, like explicitly, we're looking at like the lingering systems of colonialism and racism in Australia. And I suppose in a lot of ways, this book is about consequences. The consequences of a racist system, what it does to individuals and to families, how the policies of stolen generations have just essentially morphed into new versions of protecting children and removing children. And in this book, we get a very explicit, upfront look at some of the consequences for young people going through that experience, how it affects a sense of self, how it affects relationships. Essentially, in this book, we're introduced to a character named Jamie. He's 16 years old. Ollie is digging in her bed, if you're wondering what that sound is. There's a racist bully in town who's always harassing them and giving them shit. There's racist cops. And also, Jamie was removed from his parents when he was very young. And he now lives with an aunt and an uncle, but that clearly has had a massive impact on him and has resulted in some like unresolved resentment, anger, fear, confusion, the whole mess. And so we basically just watch as this good kid in his heart, Jamie, we watch as he's kind of thrust into the justice system. And we see how much this messes him up too, and how racist the system is, and how abusive it is. I think the book does such a great job of, you know, like when there's moments of difficulty or altercation between like the cops and the kids, this book is very good at highlighting that it's grown men
and children that they're roughing up, that they're abusing, that they're talking down to, whatever. And we're very much in Jamie's head for this whole experience. And we just kind of see how like these systems of punishment lead to further cycles. Again, that kind of theme of responsibility coming back in a different way. I've made this book sound just like miserable from start to finish. It's really not. It's filled to the brim with connection and love and tenderness. So I suppose that is what Gary Lonesborough seems to be bringing to the table, which I think is so incredible, especially in the young adult space, because he is so clearly not talking down to the readers. And I just think that's so special. He does it in such just like a direct, honest, real, beautiful, authentic kind of way, and open-hearted. Open-hearted is the best word I can think of to describe his work and how it makes me feel. It's both very humanizing and real for a person, and like it doesn't minimize that person to just their context or to a stereotype, but it also doesn't erase that context. And I think he does an incredible job of balancing that. So I'm not sure what else to say about this book. I do sort of feel like this will be a hard one to pitch, especially to like parents purchasing books for kids. Although I do feel like this is the kind of book that like I want to put into a lot of hands and that I hope a lot of people read. And I really hope that it winning our prize this week will hopefully push it into more hands, because it's quite a special book, a very powerful one, and I think an important one, but also just a really good story with great characters that I will not soon forget. So that is book number 5 done and dusted. The challenge is to read 7 books in 7 days. We're on our 7th day and the clock is ticking. Could I smash out like a little junior fiction title or a couple of manga or something like that? Absolutely, I could. Do I want to? No, I don't. This challenge was hugely, overly ambitious. Absolutely, I'm not denying that. And I think especially some of my book selections were themselves overly ambitious. And while, yes, technically the challenge was to read 7 books in 7 days, the goal, more specifically, I think, was just to read more and for reading to be a part of my everyday life again. And I sort of feel like we won. Like, you know, I achieved that. I have read more this week than I have read in 6 months. I read 5 books and like, yeah, we got a couple of short books. Yeah, we got a middle fiction and a young adult, but like, I didn't skimp, you know what I mean? I might not have technically finished the challenge, but I feel like I fucking smashed it this week. So I guess the title was kind of clickbait. So, I mean, feel free to sound off in the comments if you think I need to be cancelled, but I'm feeling pretty chuffed with myself. So I suppose we can wrap it up there. A big thank you, as always, goes to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. And especially big thank you to Livia, Lynette Brown, and Marie. And of course, thank you for watching. I'll chat with you again next week. Until then, happy reading. Bye.